We have made it. NoSo Countdown,
Yes.
number one war games of all time, according to the North South Connection. Aaron George, JT, your co-hosts from No Holes Barred every Saturday on North South Connection, both video and audio. And of course, we're here twice a month as well with What If. Aaron, how are you?
I'm fine. How did we get the number one?
Because we're number one.
Maybe.
And we're also, as Roxette once said, a little bit dangerous. No.
I thought you were going to play some music when you said that.
No, I just was.
You had your finger up too. You went like this.
I was like we're dangerous, but
I'm
also
not a Roxette guy.
No,
I'm not a Roxette. I like she's got the look. I like sleeping in my car, but you get past that and I'm a little
dangerous
lost.
is pretty good.
I don't know it. Could you sing it for me?
It'll be a little bit dangerous. That's you've heard it. I'd play it, but it'll get blocked anyway. So also, it must have been Love. Isn't that her too?
Oh yeah, I like that one.
Yeah, I think you like more than you think. That's 4 right there, because I know you like Dangerous. Anyway, speaking of Dangerous,
know the song.
Dangerous Alliance versus Sting's Squadron from War Games. It is from WrestleWar 1992. Sting, right. Barry Windham, Dustin Rhodes, Ricky Steamboat, and Nikita Koloff versus Steve Austin, Rick Rude, Arn Anderson, Bobby Eaton, and Larry Zbyszko. And
now, if you weren't watching this match, if you weren't watching the surrounding stuff, does Barry Windham seem like he's on the wrong team?
Yeah, he definitely feels more like a heel, stable guy.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Bobby Eaton out of there. I don't want to shit on Bobby Eaton, but like as I'm watching, we'll get to it as we're watching it. I'm like, everyone in the match is mean except for Bobby Eaton.
Yeah, he feels more like a good old Southern boy.
Yeah, got mixed up with the wrong crowd, brought him in.
Yeah,
slick guy with the phone.
Yeah, they don't really trust him, but maybe like Arn vouches for him. Like, no, my cousin said he's cool. He'll be all right. Yeah, he'll be fine. All right, so here are the composite rankings out there. So Cage Match has this at a 9.03, so that's pretty high. That's probably like a 4.5 average on a star rating. Dave Meltzer and Chad Campbell both have this as a 5-star match. And when Chad and I did our War Games tier list, we did only the WCW Crockett War Games, and we had this is our number 1 on the tier list as well. So I think it's, I mean, I think it's pretty well known as like the best War Games. I would say maybe like maybe the original from '87, and then '91, which were the 2 prior to this on our list. Are probably the other contenders you hear about. I don't know. I know you recently watched pretty much all of WCW.
I've seen them all.
Yeah.
The one I am a huge sucker for '96. Mm-hmm. Now I know it's not as good of a match as these, but I think it's the one for me that has the best storyline in it. I love the intrigue of Sting, and I just find that like of all of them, that was the one that felt like it had the most stakes.
Right.
Like if WCW loses this, it's bad. It wasn't specified why, but that's how I felt.
This wasn't good.
Yeah, and I also have a soft spot for the Henning Turn one.
Yeah.
I know that was kind of divisive, but I like that one as well. I think that's a solid.
I think it's one of the biggest angles that happens in a War Games. Like that comes out of it is Hennig turning on Flair and joining the NWO. I mean, this one essentially ends the Dangerous Alliance, which is a major storyline for the bulk of the end of '91 and into '92. It limps along for a little bit after this until they really splinter apart, but their effectiveness as a group really essentially ends here. And I think the build is interesting because like if it's something you just watch without watching the week to week, I think in your mind it's like, oh, the Dangerous Alliance is awesome. Look at the Stings team. This is a perfectly built setting for a War Games. It's organic. But then you listen to guys who've watched a lot of it, like Sean Kidd and the crew from 7 Months of Danger, and their stance is like it doesn't really quite hold up in that it was a lot of repetitiveness on TV and long, boring matches. And Sting wasn't even involved in the build to this match. He was out of it by this point, and yet here he is leading the team, and it didn't make sense.
It's a squadron.
Right. Yeah, why does he have a squadron if he's not really? So I think there's probably the memories versus like reliving the week to week.
Well, look, as someone who recently watched, I didn't watch the week to week, but I watched the pay-per-view to pay-per-view.
And clashes, right?
And clashes. That's right. Watch pay-per-views and clashes, and it's underwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
It is underwhelming because you're like, when they start showing up, you're like, oh my God, it's about to get great.
Yeah.
And it gets good, but it doesn't get great. Like, I think Rick Rude, I like his 93 more than his 92. And he's like such a centerpiece to all of it.
Right. Well, when you look at the team, on paper, it seems awesome, right? All right, Paulie Dangerously, awesome manager. You go Austin, who's not quite there yet, right? Like, he's kind of like, right? And then you go Rude, I think of the 5, he's the most in his prime, right? So he's there. But then you got Anderson, who, I would say still in his best days, but his real best days were the 80s. Now he's coming down the back 9. He's not going to lead the team. Right.
He's 30 years old at this point.
Right. You got Bobby Eaton, who, again, past his prime, still very good, always very good, but past his peak as the Midnight Express. And Zbyszko was like really in his final days as an active competitor. So, like, when you look at the team, or on paper, they seem amazing. They're not like all in their primes as a team. So I think that probably lends to some of this as well.
100%. I will say that, like, so in these matches, what I want out of the heel team especially are heels that look like they're dangerous and can hurt you, right? And I actually find that Zbyszko ranks pretty high in that.
Yeah,
like the scary old man that can like probably break your arm with like.
Well, he did, right? I mean, that's why he was the cruncher, right? Yeah, he had broken Dustin's hand or whatever, or Wyndham's hand, whoever it was.
Terrible name, by the way.
The cruncher. But you're right, because they were built around a team of wrestlers like that could just out wrestle you, whereas the Horsemen and others were like legit dangerous. You know what I mean? So
they'll hurt you,
right? So like that, I think that was a big part of like what you're saying for sure. So
especially when you have baby faces like Ricky Steamboat on the other side,
right? They can also wrestle really well.
Yeah, but he's like a wrestler, right? So it's like, okay, well, is the wrestler going to be able to survive getting pummeled by Arn Anderson, as opposed to, hey, there's Ricky Steamboat and Bobby Eaton throwing arm drags, like, which could be in any match.
So I will say this: I love the presentation by Paul in the team. Like, he's got the notes, he's got the strategy, he's got written down. Like, it makes the team. So it is big. Well, it's a
map. It's like a map. Like, he had to undo it. And he's got this giant sheet of paper. Like, what? Why? He can't have like a book, or like it's like fucking Clark Griswold trying to get to Wally World.
I love it. I love the seriousness with which they take that. They have this preparation. They have a strategy. I like to start with Austin and Wyndham. Like, those are two good guys to start with. And it feels like an all-out fight right away. Like, they are going at it. Austin is bleeding immediately, which is great. So, like, they're right into it.
And I appreciate that. I appreciate that they start with only high-impact moves.
Yes.
Like, there's no like twisting of the arm. I've seen cage matches where that happens, where it's like, but you can tell right away that it's Wyndham and Austin that start, and you could tell they both get it, and they're both just trying to weaken the guy as much as possible for when everybody else comes in.
Yeah, they just want to beat the shit out of each other. While they're not my favorite announced team, I do think Jim Ross and Jesse Ventura did a good job in this match. Like, they were added the legitimacy that Jesse always brings, the match, the angle, the calling it intensely, this focus. So, like, again, I much prefer Shivani and Jesse as a team in 93.
Yes.
I thought Ross and Ventura always seemed to be at odds and didn't really mesh.
Shivani actually respects Jesse and wants
to work. They play off each other, where Ross feels like he's ignoring him all the time. But I thought they were good here.
I do, in general, although I did feel that Jesse was trying too hard to be Bobby at points.
Yeah.
Where he got out of that weird comfort zone, because there's a point late in the match. Well, there's a bunch of things he says, but late in the match when they've taken the turnbuckle off, and he's like, Bobby Eaton's picking up, and Jesse's like, oh, he's trying to fix the ring. And it's like, that's a Bobby Heenan line.
Right.
Like, that's not, Jesse Ventura would be like, well, you do what you do. And, like, it's no rules. Where I found he was angling way too close to Bobby. Even at the beginning, he's like, oh, yeah, Paulie Dangerous. It was like, Mike, don't you think he's like Mike Ditka?
Yeah. So I agree with you. So Dangerous Alliance wins the coin toss, of course. The heels always win. But great reaction. I love the strategy again. Like, all right, we're gonna use Rude to help destroy Wyndham with Austin. Like, it's like, let's get the ace in there and just like beat the shit out of Wyndham while we can. like wear him down early, so when the submission time comes, this dude has been
He's
beaten
done.
to a pulp, right? So like, I love that Rude comes in next.
And
It's
that's what happens.
Yes.
Like he lays it, like he looks like an absolute killer with his offense.
Yeah.
And Austin and Rude are just such an incredible team. They murder Barry Windham.
They do. And the flow's constant. Like the grinding is nonstop, the action, the strategy, stuff is happening at all times. I love when Arn comes in. Again, like you mentioned in the beginning, like he does not fuck around. He comes in and DDTs Wyndham right away. Like
Yeah.
just right as soon as he walks through the ropes, he's DDTing him. Like he's not punch, like nothing. He's just in, boom, dropping the guy. So
And
I
then
just love the
Spinebuster
constant
Steamboat.
activity. Yes, he goes right to the next
Immediate.
ring and takes Steamboat out.
And then I've never seen Rude and Arn puts like a double Boston Crab on Steamboat.
Yes. Yeah.
Like they just try to break his back. Like right, like look, if his back's broken, he can't wrestle anymore. He's gonna give up. Like,
right. We're just gonna grind the shit out of him. I love Jesse does get a funny line. He says Ricky Steamboat screaming for every girlfriend he has in Jacksonville, which I thought was funny. Arn gets his head stuck between the rings, which was a cool visual.
Oh, they're jamming him down.
Yeah, and that he repeats that. He repeats that in '94. There's a couple spots that Arn actually brings into '94. The double crab is one. The head in the between the rings.
Yeah.
Medusa scales the cage. She drops the phone in. Sting scales the cage and chases her down. The crowd is just going fucking bonkers when they get to the top of the cage.
How much different do you think the wrestling landscape would be if Sting had thrown her off the cage?
It would probably.
This God is my witness. She is broken in half. Do we get that?
Probably pretty different. Probably pretty different. It's a cool moment though when he's chasing her down.
I like that she kind of you can see how much it's sagging too when she's up there.
Yes.
She's not sagging, not at all, but the cage is definitely sagging.
I thought Rude and Steamboat, you could tell they're in the middle of a heated feud too. Like their hate is flowing all through this match. Rude clawing at Steamboat's broken nose, just trying to bust it up. And they had fought at Super Brawl. They'll have their really classic Iron Man at Beach Blast. So like they're right in the middle of their hot feud.
Yeah, it's such good stuff. And I love too that like I find what WCW does really well in this. They do it in a bunch of them, but they use the roof of the cage too. Which like Dustin does an atomic drop on Austin and rams his head into the top of the cage first. They try that, both of them. I think Steamboat actually gets it where he grabs the top and starts kicking. Like I love that stuff because they're not just beating up each other; they're using the environment. Same thing with the head in between the ropes. Like
it's a real fight. You use whatever you can find, right, in a fight.
Now, could you explain to me what the sound Paul Heyman was making when Beautiful Bobby entered the ring? Because it was like wah wah wah.
Do you think it was like a signal, like part of the strategy? Like when I make this noise, you know something's gonna happen.
I hope. Well, look, I love at the beginning. I know we're jumping around, but at the beginning, he's like, "All right, well, if this happens, we're gonna do this, and if this happens, we're gonna do that."
Yeah, and he's got like a flow chart. He's got a whole flow chart laid out.
An adventure book that he's
a lot of options. Austin and Wyndham at one point are bleeding, slugging away on the mat. Just the whole thing looks and feels so brutal. But I want to ask you questions here. So, do you believe this is a strategy fail or a strategy win by the faces? Do you think Sting is clearly the best, right? He's world champion. Like, he's the guy. Should he have started the match because he's the best wrestler they have? Or is he best to be the closer because he's the most likely to be able to finish someone off when he comes in fresh?
So I think if the face side are students of history, they're going to understand that for whatever reason, the luck is always on the side of the heels. And you don't want your best guy in a situation where he's down 2-on-1.
Yeah.
So even when he comes in, I was surprised that he came in fourth, but I kind of like it. I almost imagine that him coming in fourth instead of fifth is like an audible.
Right. Like they need me in there. I got to get in there.
Yeah, I got to go now because we're getting our asses kicked. We'll leave Koloff for the end. He's the strongest. He'll be fine. But when he gets in there, I of all the wrestlers that I watched in my WCW watch, Sting is far and away to me the most impressive. Like his babyface energy is kind of unparalleled because he never gets to that God level that Hogan and Warrior did. He's like a superhero version of Ricky Steamboat, who's not invincible.
Right.
And I think it just works. Like he grabs Rude, he's pressing him into the cage, like bam, bam, bam. Like he's so on point when he comes in. But you're right. Like I think the strategy, I think it's better to keep him at the end. I love the heel strategy, and I think the heel strategy in theory could be an audible too. Like as soon as they realize they have the advantage, then they choose Rude kind of thing.
Yes,
But
right. Send him in. The so you get the moment of mistrust with Sting and Nikita. I thought this was a little forced. Like, why are they staring down now? Why not do it outside the cage? Suddenly they're in.
Yeah.
I guess they're trying to tease that maybe Nikita could turn once he got in there. But then, like again, it felt a little contrived where Nikita staves Sting and takes the blow. You know, they high five and hug, and like I don't like that felt a little out of place.
Crazy, but the crowd loved it.
Oh, they loved it,
like,
so it worked. But it felt like a
up,
little forced.
Yeah, I would agree. It did feel a bit forced, but I was surprised at how over that moment was. Like, they lost their shit. It was like when Daniel Bryan and Kane hugged for the first time.
Yeah, right.
Like, the high five that goes nuts. Like I said, like the only person I find out of place in the match, and it's not because he's not good, as Bobby Eaton.
Yeah,
like when he comes in, it's like I don't feel scared for the faces at all. Like I know he can wrestle them, but I'm not expecting Bobby Eaton to hurt anybody.
Maybe he should have started, but I think Austin is the workhorse. Makes sense though, but like maybe Eaton was better as that, eat the first section up. But I don't know. It's tough to say because Wyndham and Austin were so good. So
no, and then the other choice you could have made is you could have put Dustin in early, but his blade job in this, like. Mm-hmm. His pants are as polka dotted as his father's, like with red. Like there's blood like everywhere. Like it's gross. It's a gross blade job. His head is completely red. I think his blade job is grosser than Austin's, which is already disgusting stuff.
There's a lot of blood flowing. The crowd is insane down the home stretch. They're super involved. I love Eaton. The one thing he does, when he rips apart the turnbuckle to use as a weapon. Again, it speaks to your mentality earlier, right? Like use anything you can in this construct. So he's like, screw it. He starts jacking out the
not jacking
off the turnbuckle, pulls it out, and then he smashes. No, but
he doesn't. He hands it off.
Yeah, no,
like he's too nice.
He is. He's just like, I'm not going to do it. Here's the weapon. But it's just a good approach. Like, what can we use to like end this match? Oh, let me rip this giant piece of metal out of the ring. And then yes, Larry gets it and fucks up. He hits Eaton with it, and that costs it in. And then they wrench the arm, and he gives up.
So that's my only issue with the match is that arm lock at the end, because I find, to me, the match, the way it flows and everything is near flawless, and then you end with what looks like a transition move.
Right.
Like I just wish that, like, if you're gonna do the arm, I don't mind the arm, I don't mind that they do that, but like put a variant on it, snap it harder, like just something. Have the camera on him when he taps. Like where they didn't, they miss it, right? That's the only problem with the match.
Or have two guys, like one guy's pulling the arm and the other guy's pulling his head away or something like that, right? So like really,
and the others are keeping everybody else away, or like just something to because it's been so brutal, and then it goes down to like an arm bar.
It almost sounds like when I explain my view of Hell in a Cell that not everyone agrees with, that the match is so brutal that a weak tombstone ends the match, right? It seems like a similar approach you're taking here.
I guess. I mean, I don't feel it as much in that one, but I guess, it would be similar.
Okay. That said, I am 5 stars in this match. I think it's fantastic. And it does set up the end of the War Games. They blame Zbyszko for the loss, and then it starts to peel apart. I should say the end of Dangerous Alliance. It starts to peel them apart as a group. Sting's squadron stands tall. I think it's as perfect as the War Games as you're going to get. You get the blood, get the strategy, the crowd heat's great. You get the workhorses in there, and at least the finish is part of the story that plays out going forward. So, which is well done. So, I mean, I think it's a fantastic match. I think it's a fitting number one. Again, the first one from '87 is awesome. '91's great, but this one has the better just energy and story into it versus 91 in my mind. So I think it's very fitting. I have no qualms with it. It's 5 stars for me. Chad and I had a number one on our tier list, and I agree wholeheartedly with it being number one here.
Yeah, in terms of match quality, I'm on board too. I'm at 4 3/4, but really it's only because of the ending. It's odd because when I watched this one probably about 8-9 months ago, I guess, for the first time. I'd never seen it before then, and I think I had it at 4, and I was disappointed by it. Then when I went back and looked, I noticed that like the other matches leading up to it on the card were all 4. So maybe when I watched it, I was just burnt out or comparing it to those. But on its own, I just love the way it moved. Like I said, the only problem I have is the finish. And because it's the finish, that's why I ding it a bit. But no qualms about it being number 1. Makes sense to me. And if you haven't seen it, go check it out. Like, even in a vacuum, it's super fun.
It is. All right. I want to thank everyone who's tuned in to all these War Games specials here on the NoSo Countdown series. I want to thank Ryan Gray. Put a ton of time and effort into getting these all pulled together over the last 23 days. Hopefully everyone enjoys this year's War Games and it lives up to maybe being worth being ranked somewhere high on the list if we were to revisit this. We have more NoSo Countdown content coming along with everything in North-South Connection. Just check us out. Subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, we have great videos almost every day. We have audio content on all podcast applications, and you can follow us on social media. And again, check out Aaron and I every single Saturday here on the North-South Connection on No Holds Barred, and also 2 Wednesdays a month with What If. Aaron, anything you want to wrap up with?
I just wish that Sting's squadron would fight AOC's squadron. I think that'd be a hell of a match.